Tony Daunt got involved in Michigan Republican politics in 2000 after graduation from MSU. He was a staffer in the U.S. Senate and worked for 2 state lawmakers. He was the manager of constituent affairs for a time for former Governor Rick Snyder before becoming the executive director of the Michigan Freedom Fund, which is funded in part by the DeVos family. He's been there for 6 years. Welcome to the program, and Kathy's got the first question.
All right.
Since January 1st, when the new administration has gotten sworn in, the Michigan Freedom Fund has been repeatedly bashing Governor Whitmer, Attorney General Nessel, Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State, for a lot of their proposals. Is the Freedom Fund going to be putting out some of its own proposals at some point?
So I guess I would contend, I wouldn't call it bashing as much as holding them accountable for not fulfilling, they had a lot of rhetoric that they put forward on the campaign trail. Jocelyn Benson related to transparency, Gretchen Whitmer related to fixing the roads. And we think that it's important that if you're going to put rhetoric out there while you're on the campaign trail, that you follow through with it. And one of the first things that Gretchen Whitmer does after scoffing in a debate, telling every voter in Michigan multiple times that raising the gas tax by 20 cents was ridiculous and that it was nonsense. The only ridiculous thing was that it was, the 20 cents was off by 25 cents. And so I think it's pretty dishonest to say that I'm not going to raise the gas tax by 20 cents and then the first thing you put forward to fix the damn roads is 45-cent gas tax increase on the people who could least afford to pay it.
She made that as a candidate, and once she got in as governor and looked at the books and knew all the information, therefore the ridiculous thing was inoperative.
I think if you buy that, I've got some property for you on the water in Arizona. Because
so, again, as Kathy was talking about sort of policy initiatives, so let's go back to what we were talking about with this roads issue. Republicans are really calling out, and yourself included, about this 45-cent gas tax increase. Why haven't Republicans then come up with their own ideas?
Well, we've had, again, Gretchen Whitmer has been in office for a few months now. She made fixing the damn roads the key platform, and I guess maybe I can make news right now. We agree we want to fix the damn roads, if that is news.
It's not.
But if that's the case, right, but that's what I'm saying. So everyone, again, as I was saying earlier, it seems like everyone in Lansing wants to fix the roads. Voters want the roads fixed. Why not come up with a counter proposal then? Well,
certainly, they gave her time to put her proposal forward, and I think probably most people would have expected that they'd be a little bit more inspired than a 45-cent gas tax increase. I think that was a lazy and uninspired idea. But then why don't Republicans come up with something not quote unquote lazy or uninspired? I think you've seen them, discussing that they're working on that, and I have faith that Speaker Chatfield and Senate Majority Leader Shirkey are going to put something together that does not hit everybody in the state of Michigan to the tune of at least $300-400 extra a year, depending on how many times you pump up. It's certainly, if you look at, everybody knows our roads are bad, and if you travel on them, you realize we need to do something. But, the government gets a lot of money from taxpayers. Our budget is about $60.2 billion, I think, is the proposed budget, 10.3 or so of that in general fund dollars. That's a big number for people out in the middle of the state, people who go to work every day, who go home to their family, and they don't think about what we do here in Lansing.
Well, Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey said in the beginning, he's backed away from this a little bit, but not that much. But let's wait until 2021-22 when the money really kicks in from what we did in 2015. So the Republicans basically already say we've got a plan in place. Let's see if it works. And even if you did something now to hike the revenue, it's not going to happen overnight that you're going to fix the roads. It's going to be 3, 4, 5 years before people really see the result.
And I think that's fair to a point to see how things play out from what was done a few years ago. And they purposefully set it so that it would kind of stagger or step its way in so that they didn't flood the market and create a shortage of materials or a shortage of labor. But And that gets to the other point of when they last did this, everybody talked about, well, we need $1.5 or so billion to address the roads. And as soon as they did that, like, well, actually we need, $2.5 billion or we need $4 billion. And that type of talk to the people we work with across the state, grassroots, people who talk to us, and I mean, this gas tax thing is the most interacted thing we've ever done on our social media and emails coming into us. You look at that type of, the government can't even get it straight on how much money it needs.
Your group
You contrast that with what we just saw with the computer system for DHHS, $230 million over 5 years for a program that's total garbage. That should give no faith to people in the state of Michigan to give more tax dollars to Lansing.
Your group is infamous for firing off press releases anytime Ms. Whitmer sneezes, all right? I noticed there was no press release when the two Republican leaders said in a news conference, we need to raise more money for the roads. Did you miss that story?
We are focused on holding everybody in Lansing accountable.
Did you go nuts when you heard that?
We understand that there needs to be some innovative thinking on how we deal with this roads problem.
Do you agree that more money is needed?
Possibly, but until we figure out how the money is being spent now, and you've got,
well,
again,
in their defense, they said first things first. They would look at other parts of the budget, but at the end of the day, Mr. Shirkey in particular said we need to do something to raise the revenue. You didn't agree with that.
I think it's, we shouldn't take anything off the table in that regard, but when you look at the number of taxpayer dollars that we spend at the pump that don't go to the roads, Speaker Chatfield's been mentioning that repeatedly, and we agree. If you're paying money at the pump in taxes, you should be able to know that it's going to fix the roads.
So you would favor moving the sales tax to all of the roads?
I think we should make sure that everything that's paid at the pump goes to the roads and address the budget that way. And then that makes it easier to sell to people who are a small business owner, who are a stay-at-home mom, who are working 3 jobs.
I think that's one of the reasons that the two caucuses, Republican majorities in the House and Senate, got together in an historic joint session this week and met to maybe strategize a little bit about this, on how they're on the same page vis-a-vis the governor? I
think anytime that the legislators are looking out for taxpayers, and I would imagine that the two leaders of that caucus, they've shown leadership in terms of being looking out for taxpayers. I think that's a good thing when they get together to discuss what their options are, make sure that they are together so that we do protect taxpayers. I mean, that's what the Michigan Freedom Fund is about, and that's where, why we got started, is to protect taxpayers, because most of those people don't have the money to hire a lobbyist and go advocate on their behalf.
Talking about protecting Michigan taxpayers, there's been a lot of talk going into this tax season. Folks who were not expecting to have to pay big money on their taxes being surprised this filing season that they now are because of the federal tax plan. What's going on?
So, I mean, we are strictly state-based issues, and so anything related to the federal tax reform, obviously, I personally support it, and I think probably anybody who is, works for the Freedom Fund or supports us out, the people we speak with out in the grassroots, our followers, they would be supportive of a tax cut. I don't know enough of the details, but I know from what I've kind of read and from what I've heard that a lot of that was simply, you're still getting a tax cut, you're just, the withholding tables were changed, and so that led to people having...
But that's hard for people to understand if suddenly they're writing checks for $3,000 or $4,000 when they thought they were going to get a couple $1,000s back. I'm hearing reports of people, planning summer vacations, not able to. And again, whether or not it was withheld earlier or not, it can certainly feel like you're writing a big check.
And, not to discount any of those concerns, I think if you're expecting a chunk of money and you don't get it, it's always disappointing. But, I made sure when the tax increase or the tax cut was passed that I took a look at what my withholding was and how to make sure I didn't have a big tax bill at the end. Has
Ms. Whitmer done anything that has impressed you?
Oh goodness, it's pretty hard to look past such a big piece of dishonesty as this claim that you're not going to raise gas taxes by 20 cents.
That trumped everything?
I think that trumps everything. I think that really creates skepticism in people who maybe were inclined to give her the benefit of the doubt, at least for a little bit. When you say something like that, when you look into the camera and scoff at the idea that you're going to do this. You laugh, you say it's ridiculous, you say it's nonsense, and then a mere 4 or 5 months later, you put forward an increase of 45 cents, 25 cents more than what you said you would not do. I mean, the credibility is gone.
What about
how
Nessel
difficult is
and
it?
Benson? What about Nessel and Benson?
You know, they both, you know, we expected them to be left-wing radicals for all intents and purposes, and I think so far they've shown that they are what we expected them to be.
Wait,
you know,
they're
Jocelyn,
radicals?
I mean, yeah,
How are
hard,
they
hard
radicals?
left. You know, Southern Poverty Law Center, you know, both ties to that. Jocelyn Benson having worked for them. You know, you've got
Wait,
all the rhetoric.
Law Center that lets folks know where there's like Nazi groups and militias in different states is radical?
I think there's maybe a difference of, you know, there's maybe a bit of good work that the Southern Poverty Law Center has done in the past, but nowadays it's just a far left group that seeks to shut down people who have a different opinion. And there's a difference between Nazis and you know, hate groups and people who believe in traditional
So is it right
religious
for Ms.
freedom.
Nessel to go after John Engler to get him to give an interview?
You know, John Engler's his own guy, and I think he's fully competent to handle this fight on his own.
Well, that may be the case, but the question was, is it right for her to go after him to complete the investigation?
I think that what happened at Michigan State is a tragedy.
Should he give the
And
interview?
I think that people should be held accountable for the actions there, and where that leads, I think, is up to the people doing the investigation. And I think there's no other way to put it than it was a tragedy.
Do you think Nessel is mishandling her negotiations with Engler over getting him
Let
to
me
submit
get my
to an
question
interview?
answered. Should he give the interview?
You know, that's for John Engler and his attorney to decide.
So you're going to punt on that?
And I don't know if it was a punt, maybe just a
Well,
lateral.
you didn't answer the question.
You know, he had agreed to meet, and since then things have blown up. And again, John's his own guy, his own man, and I think he's fully capable of handling this himself.
All right, we have 10 seconds. Are you going to run for something?
Well, I hate to say never, but pretty close to no, never. Not anytime soon.
Not anytime. You'll call us when you change your mind, right?
Absolutely, you'll be the first to know.
Thank you. Yeah, there was one. Thank you for being here. Also, thanks to you guys. See you next week right here on Off the Record.